CBS 42 College Football Saturday wrap-up, presented by Pepsi.
Second down and 9. Mac Jones, pressure coming from behind, allowed to the end zone. Devontae Smith, touchdown. Are you kidding me?
So many moments you could have said all week long, Alabama, are you kidding me? And Devontae Smith was one of many. Why did he come back for a senior year? To win big-time games, to make big-time catches just like that. Welcome into our wrap-up show on CBS 42 College Football Saturday. This small group of fans are leaving Bryant-Denny Stadium after they saw a magnificent second half from their Crimson Tide, where things were not looking that great going into the half for Alabama. Welcome in Chris Brees and Drew Carter here. We are waiting for Alabama, Nick Saban's press conference. We're going to carry it live as soon as it comes up. We're going to wait for it until it comes. But until then, Drew, we have an entire second half to figure out what happened on this team, because we're going into the half. We're looking everywhere on social media and saying, well, this is doom and gloom. Alabama is toast, and this defense is terrible. And then all of a sudden, we have a third quarter complete momentum shift and turnovers and touchdowns and different ball game.
Yeah, it's hard to remember at halftime, Chris. Alabama was actually losing this game because they boat raced Georgia in that second half. Mentioned the turnovers, 2 huge interceptions, late third quarter, early fourth quarter. That really swung the tide, no pun intended, in this game. But also, that graphic we just showed, awaiting Nick Saban press conference, we actually had to change that graphic yesterday when we figured out that there was a chance Saban was going to coach this game. And I think it's fair to say, Chris, do we know that it would have gone the same way without Saban on the sidelines?
We don't, especially the way Georgia moved the football in the first half. Just talking about what they did at will, did it when they wanted to do it, and Alabama's defense had zero answer for it. And Nick Saban, you knew he would be a blasting presence on this field, just having him out there, a calming presence, and they needed it early because Stetson Bennett was on.
Yeah, this was an amazing play drawn up by Georgia, their offensive coordinator, Todd Monken. You get 5 wide receivers with your running back as one of them, a linebacker on him. He's got no chance to keep up.
You think Bama knows big plays? How about 82 yards for Georgia? But Mac Jones, after a pick, was really good. He was calm and didn't get flustered. Here's one other one to Devontae Smith.
Yeah, Jones's final numbers look amazing. 417 yards, 4 touchdowns, but he did struggle. He was under siege early on.
Give credit to Stetson Bennett, though, because he was tough, too. He got rattled a lot. And Georgia took a lead 24-17 late in the second half, but this was enormous. The longest field goal for Alabama since 2015. Will Reichard, 52 yards?
Shout out Hoover, right? The Bucks. Will Reichard, right from Hoover to T-Town, knocks down a 50-plus yarder.
Also got to keep in mind, this was the third straight time Alabama trailed Georgia at the half, 2017, 2018. But then this happened. Jalen Waddle, big play, explosive potential. You see it there.
Chris, what happened in those last 2 games, the last 2 times Georgia led at halftime?
They had a backup quarterback, but they didn't need a backup quarterback because Mac Jones was terrific, and this play was very crucial. It was third down. It's still a 1-score game. Georgia has a pass interference, and on the very next play, Najee Harris, 2-score game. That was detrimental right there.
I feel like that pass should go in Devontae Smith's final numbers. He was unstoppable. The only way to stop him was with the PI.
And then just in case you didn't think it was over, this really made it over. You saw it earlier, the play of the game. Are you kidding me? And we are not. Devontae Smith, how about the numbers on this kid? 11 catches, 180-plus yards, multiple touchdowns. Alabama. This game wasn't close. What are you talking about? 41-24. The Crimson Tide get the victory. They are top dogs in the SEC, in the West, in the East. We'll talk about the East. It's a jumbled mess. Again, we are awaiting Nick Saban's post-game press conference for the Crimson Tide. The game ended about 10 minutes ago. Expecting coach sometime in the next 5 minutes. In the meantime, let's talk about this defense, because you could say every negative word in the book you wanted for the first 25, 30 minutes of the game. They got interceptions when it mattered most, and it started right here.
Yeah, and I think for Pete Golding, he's got to go home, kick his feet up, and maybe have a victory cigar. Because if you check Twitter, like you said, everyone hated this guy. Last week at Ole Miss, first half of this game. But you see the turnovers and the opportunism for Alabama. First interception leads to a touchdown. Here's another one. We shouted out Hoover earlier. How about a shout-out Hewitt Trussville, Malachi Moore, another interception.
You got to keep in mind, Georgia is going in to take the lead. That ball is tipped. It could have been caught. Moore gets the interception, and this is the ensuing drive. Alabama They were going to be losing this game. All of a sudden, the pick, the touchdown, a two-score game, and then again a few minutes later.
And, Chris, we can't overstate this enough. Georgia had more than 400 yards of total offense. They were really doing whatever they wanted in the first half. They scored 24. They were winning going into halftime. They get blanked in the second half. Alabama's defense tightens the screws, and it's mostly thanks to the turnovers.
Now, look at the other side, though. If Alabama doesn't get a few of those bounces, you got to admit that Malachi Moore interception was a bounce.
Right.
If they don't get that, who knows where this game would have gone in the third quarter. We're looking at easily a 14, 17, maybe even a 21-point swing late in the third quarter. That was the reason why this game was so lopsided on the scoreboard.
Yeah, and it's two things worth mentioning there. First of all, shout out to Josh Jobe for making that play, forcing the deflection, allowing more, because it probably would have been a catch and a first down if he had not been there. And the second thing is Stetson Bennett the fourth is Stetson Bennett the fourth. I mean, if you are playing in the playoff against, let's say, Ohio State makes it, you're playing against Justin Fields, you might not get those breaks that a guy like Bennett the fourth coughed up today. So the Alabama defense, you're right, they were opportunistic, but as a whole, fans might not be super encouraged about the defense.
And Bennett made so many storylines the first 3 weeks because this is a kid who wasn't even a starter. He's a fourth-string player by many people's aspects. He had 0 interceptions his first 3 games combined. He had 3 tonight, and it was the big swing we've been talking about the entire time. He clearly got rattled late. Mac Jones did not get rattled late because he was fantastic since the beginning, and he's been fantastic since he took over for Tua last year. He makes big plays, and what I love most about him is you saw the pick early. This happens all the time. He could easily get flustered. He, time and again, comes back the very next drive and delivers a touchdown. He did that again tonight, and it set the tone for the entire night.
Yeah, Chris, he missed a couple of throws. He got hit a few times throughout that first half. But what I love about Mac Jones is that he's smart. Just put the ball in the hands of guys like 17 and 6 and sometimes 8. You saw Jalen Waddle there, the 90-yard touchdown, which was mostly a catch and run. But the important part for Jones is if you hit those guys in stride, no one's going to catch them. So the numbers for Jones look amazing. He played great, but it's just smart, and it's good game planning by Sark to just get the ball to your playmakers and let them do the rest.
411 yards from Mac Jones. It seems like each time, each week, we're saying, okay, can his numbers get better? Can they get better? I said in the pregame show his numbers aren't the best in the country. Now, tonight's numbers could have impressed people.
Yeah.
Those numbers, in my opinion, tonight are going to turn a lot of eyeballs. I know Trevor Lawrence is top dog in the Heisman race. You got to think that Mac Jones is at least in that conversation to make it to New York.
Yeah, Chris, I actually don't know that Trevor Lawrence is the top dog anymore because, look, they crushed Georgia Tech
the
today.
defense he's playing. I mean, Georgia Tech and Georgia defense, it's light years away who they're playing in the ACC.
Well, the numbers look fairly similar for Jones and Lawrence as far as efficiency is concerned so far this season. And you look at the defenses they're playing. I mean, I know SEC defenses are much maligned this year. Georgia's the best defense in the country, in my opinion, and Mac Jones just sliced and diced them, especially in the second half, en route to a big win. I think Mac has got to be #1 in the Heisman conversation. The only thing that would hold him back is his running back also is in the Heisman conversation. 31 carries, 150, and a touchdown for Najee tonight, so those two guys could be neck and neck.
You saw just the way Georgia was playing physical on defense. Everybody knows that this team has every athlete they want to match Alabama. And I think that's why people were so concerned early on, was because, well, we're in a game against a tough team whose talent is identical to ours. And if we don't keep making plays, we don't know what's going to happen. Nick Saban didn't know what was going to happen, but at the end, he figured it out. He made adjustments, and it's all that mattered for Alabama. Coach is live at the podium. We'll take it right now.
Well, this was an obvious, great win against a very, very good football team. I was really proud of the way our guys fought. And I think they handled the disruption really, really well. I'm not sure me coming back today, I think they were ready to play this game whether I was there or not. I told them when I got sick, I said I hadn't made a block or a tackle or caught a pass for, about 40 years now. So whether I'm there or not, you guys ought to be able to go out there and take care of business. So, and I was really proud of the way they handled all that.
All right, Coach, that's all the time we've got. Thank you.
Now, there's a man who has earned certainly at least a nap and hopefully a good night's sleep. Nick Saban, what a whirlwind week. He wraps up his press conference with gratitude for everyone who has sent their well wishes after that, what turns out to be false positive COVID-19 test earlier this week. It ends with an Alabama win, as most weeks normally do.
He's not even sick, and he probably is going to feel sick after this because he's not slept and he's really nervous and worried about the game. But he got it done, and that's all that mattered. And the timeline he had all week was really ridiculous. We are going to bring that to you coming up here on the wrap-up show. So much more to get to. Saban's three-day whirlwind from Wednesday, Thursday, Friday into Saturday. It's coming up next. Plus, our Twitter mailbag. We mentioned how a lot of people were not happy about this Alabama defense. Well, that included some former Bama players who were superstars in their own right. Who were they and what they were saying as the wrap-up show rolls on. Alabama, the only undefeated team in the SEC. We're only 4 weeks in. That's what happens when you play a conference-only schedule.
You're watching CBS 42 College Football Saturday Wrap-Up, presented by Pepsi.
Just in case you haven't watched anything on the news the last 4 days and you're just tuning in, the Nick Saban COVID timeline was nuts. Starting on Wednesday with the first positive, ended up being a false positive. Here's how it happened. Wednesday early afternoon, Saban got a test. It was positive. He went home, took a PCR test. That was also positive, thinking he was having COVID-19.
Right, and the sky was falling on Wednesday.
Yes.
It was the biggest story in sports, really the biggest story, period, on Wednesday. But then we see, Chris, that everything changes.
Yep, Thursday, a negative test. Took another test on Friday. That was negative. And then today, took a third negative test, a PCR test. These were all through the SEC-appointed lab. And on top of that, just to be safe, 2 extra tests from another lab.
So 5 negative tests in 3 days. I mean, you're talking almost 2 negatives per day. That is prolific. That might be some type of record.
Yeah, and the original negative, we should note, was not the SEC lab on Wednesday. That was a supplemental lab that Alabama uses to test every day. It was not the original SEC protocol lab. No idea how that works with false positives, false negatives. It's a thing. We know that. But they're happy that they got their head coach back. That is a fact. And if you looked at a lot of these Alabama fans, they were not happy with this defense in the first half. You say doom and gloom, the sky was falling. Well, you looked at Georgia running and throwing the football however way they wanted to. It was not hard to find people on social media saying, this defense needs to go.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, Chris. If you were scrolling through Twitter in the first half, you would have thought that the program had just ended or they got the death penalty or something when they were just down by a few points. But Stuart Hartley says, I know Saban has been afraid of mass turnover never ending. I'm afraid he's going to have to cut some guys loose. I think Stuart, if we checked on him now, is probably feeling a little bit better about that Alabama D, but
he's probably still not happy with Pete Golding, and we're assuming that's the person he's getting the brunt of this at. Maybe some other defensive staff members as well. But you have to look at this and realize that there is no way that Nick Saban does not completely have his hand in this defense. Right. You would be a fool to say that this defense is only Pete Golding, it's only his scheme. We see Saban out there at practice every day, full-on coaching his guys. It's his defense, too.
Right, and we also saw him a few times during this game about as animated as he has been throughout the entire season. I think I counted 3 or 4 different times where he was either screaming at the refs or at his own players or maybe people on his own coaching staff. If there's a weakness of the team right now, it is the defense, so you know that's where Saban's attention is going to be, especially since he's a defense guy.
Alabama is so used to having their players be superstars on defense, but the reality of it is not every single year you're going to have a superstar go return because another guy went to the NFL, and that's what Alabama's problem has been. They have so many stars in the NFL on defense, and we're seeing a lot of them tonight. They weren't happy either.
Yeah, we could have picked a few of these, Chris. We go with Sean Dion Hamilton, currently with the Washington football team. The linebacker says, I know Saban has some sleepless nights nowadays, because for Sean Dion Hamilton and really everyone who played for Alabama before maybe 2019, this is such uncharted territory. Alabama has been defense first for the first dozen or so years that Saban was the coach there.
Marlon Humphrey also had a tweet that he wasn't very happy with the defensive play calling. He's a good example because he was a player who went pro early. How many dozens of Alabama players have gone to pro early in the last decade? It is a lot. Eventually, it's going to catch up to you. It's a reality of the matter. Every single year, you cannot have a 5-star come in and replace another one. It may work a little bit. eventually it's not going to work out, and we're seeing that the last 2 years. You have to accept it.
Right. One time Nick Saban at a press conference had that Dasani bottle, or maybe the Coke bottle, and he said, I can't just wave this bottle and make a 5-star appear. It sometimes seems like he can do that with the way he recruits, but you're right. Eventually that turnover is going to catch up with you. They still have studs on this defense like Moses and Surtain, and Barmore looks like a superstar right now. But when you've got that much youth and you've got that much turnover, sometimes it's going to bite you.
If they stay opportunistic, that's the only thing that will matter, because Alabama can win games on defense if they capitalize exactly the way they did tonight against Georgia. One team who did not capitalize on the road today was the Auburn Tigers at South Carolina, a game that seemed like they had it well in hand early. What happened for Auburn on the road? We'll dissect that next on the wrap-up show.
You're watching CBS 42 College Football Saturday Wrap-Up, presented by Pepsi.
Full free fall mode for the Auburn Tigers today after South Carolina, a trip to Columbia where they have not lost to this team since joining the SEC in 1993. And Bo Nix, the way he played last week, all eyes were on him. He was scrambling, he was running for his life, kind of like last week and a lot like last week. Interceptions.
Did not get a whole lot of help from that offensive line there, Chris. There were a couple of times where Nix just made bad decisions, but that time he was under siege.
Now, what was the problem with those picks? Well, they led to touchdowns for South Carolina on the other end. That was one. They got the Gamecocks right back in the game when Auburn thought they had a good lead. This wasn't his fault. That was two.
Well, Chris, that was probably the worst pass Nix threw all day. It was behind Seth Williams, and not only was it a pick, which leads to this touchdown we see for South Carolina, it also led to that on the sideline. That's your best offensive player arguing with the quarterback, never a good sign.
So at this point, South Carolina has taken a lead in the second half, and when you have Bo Nix rattled, his best receiver is also rattled, and South Carolina suddenly has a 2-score lead. Auburn couldn't do anything. That was 3 picks, leading to 3 touchdowns on the other end. Auburn made it a 1-score game. Here's Nix on 3rd down. They call this intentional grounding, loss of down, leading to the last play of the game.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like every week Bo Nix does something we've never seen before. He's parallel to the ground there. I think his elbow's an inch off the deck. It still leads to grounding.
So here it is, the game on the line. Auburn's down by 8. They would still need a 2-point conversion here regardless. That was holding. Didn't matter. Bo Nix is short of the first down line, and Auburn loses at South Carolina. 30-22 is the final. You can say Tank Bigsby had a good game on the ground. He certainly did, more than 100 yards, but it's the same thing for Gus Malzahn every week, and it makes you wonder what this team has to play for in 2020 now.
Could be just game 4, not going through spring. I don't know. But, you know, if you look at the stat sheet, we wanted to be balanced. And for the most part, we were. I think we had, 200 yards rushing, 9 yards rushing, 272. I thought we did very good on 3rd downs in the first half. I think we were 1 of 5 or 6 in the second half. You know, but you got to give them credit. And we didn't. You know, I think the turnovers were big.
That's an understatement there from the head coach, Gus Malzahn. And I think, Chris, the story of this Auburn team this season, coming in, Bo Nix was going to be the X factor. If he takes that step and maybe becomes a Heisman contender, Auburn could be really good, maybe contend for the playoffs. It has not gone that way.
Well, and let's be fair. He lost so much on his offensive line this last year. You couldn't expect them to lose 4 starters and so many guys who contributed and go back in there and plug in just because Bo Nix has 1 extra year of being a starter under his belt. It's growing pains, and they need a running presence. Tank Bigsby is certainly doing that. They need to run the football with the quarterback, with everybody. That's the way Gus Malzahn has been successful, if you want to be realistic about it. That's what they need to do, and then this Auburn defense is not what it used to be because they lost so many guys to the NFL last year. They are trying to rebuild. Here in Birmingham, UAB is not rebuilding because they feel like they are a top dog in Conference USA. They're undefeated in the league. And in comes Western Kentucky today. The home win streak was on the line for UAB, and Western put them to the test early.
Yeah, Western Kentucky, the Hilltoppers showing a little fight, but UAB at home's almost unbeatable.
So UAB was down 7-3 in the first half. That's when Spencer Brown got going. And that's when Dwayne McBride, a new guy running the football, 71 yards. They take a lead 17-7.
Feels like every week, Chris, the Blazers just pull another guy out of the backfield. He goes for a long touchdown. The offense was great on the ground, then through the air. That's Bryson Lucero, their new fancy toy at quarterback out of IMG Academy. to Austin Watkins, a guy who could play in the NFL one day, and UAB runs away and wins this game.
Yeah, 24-14. They're happy. They're still undefeated in Conference USA. Perhaps they're a team to beat, and Bill Clark knows his guys keep doing what you're doing, you'll have good results.
You know, this was a big one for us. You know, obviously, it means a little more when somebody beats you the year before, so it was pretty special. And you know, I've been giving them credit. They came in, had a new quarterback, and did a few things different. But you know, just really proud of our effort, our energy. We had a really good week of practice.
Jacksonville State playing their third of 4 games in the fall schedule this year. This one without John Gross, the head coach. He has COVID. They're on the road against North Alabama. Maybe a little shaky early because they were down early.
I mean, it's tough to go on the road without your head coach, but they've got a good guy at quarterback, Zarek Cooper. Didn't he used to play at Clemson, Chris?
He did, and now he knows how to run the football. He knows how to throw it. He didn't have to do a whole lot today because his team got him on the goal line, and all number 6 had to do was run it in himself. Did it a couple of times, and that was good enough for Jacksonville State on the road, 24-17. They have one more game to end their fall schedule at FIU next Friday before they begin their winter-spring season in the OVC. Coming up on the wrap-up show, let's go around the SEC and what has happened in Knoxville. We can't really describe the Rocky flop that's gone on the last 2 weeks. Tennessee is in free-fall mode as well, just like the Auburn Tigers are and other games around the SEC. We'll be right back. Yeah.
Watching CBS 42 College Football Saturday Wrap-Up, presented by Pepsi.
That's just us at practice, just getting the chemistry down, and and Matt just really just believing in me. As I always tell Matt, you believe in me, I believe in you. I won't never let you down.
I mean, I'm just glad we won the game. Like, if we just keep winning, everyone will get stats or whatever you guys like. But I just enjoy winning, and I think the defense needs more credit than they deserve tonight, going out there, pitching a shutout in the second half pretty much. And, you know, they gave us the energy we needed, and we told them that goes week to week.
You got to love Mac Jones, man. He says, you guys like the stats in the media. He doesn't care as long as they win, and Alabama did tonight. They beat Georgia 41-24. Back on our wrap-up show with Chris Brees. I'm Drew Carter, and Chris, that sound is pretty good from Jones.
He likes the stats. Let's be honest about it. This team is so used to winning. They're the only one in the SEC who has not lost yet in 2020. It's crazy because what's been going on in this conference week to week is just jaw-dropping. And we go back to the SEC East with Kentucky and Tennessee because these two teams really feel like they are top dogs in the East behind Georgia because, you know, Florida not playing against LSU this week. It got postponed. They're thinking that they can maybe get a step up on the Gators, as well as 2 other East teams. Vanderbilt and Missouri did not play as well today. So Kentucky and Tennessee, they felt like, all right, it's our turn to shine. And Tennessee was the team, Drew, who was going in with the momentum. They played well for 3 quarters against Georgia, but Jared Garantano, he had a pick-6 problem.
You're never going to win a game, Chris, when you throw 2 pick-6s in the first half, and that's what Garantano did today. It was the day of the pick-6 in the SEC, and Garantano leading the charge in a bad way.
Man, final score 34-7. They only needed those 2 pick-6s. They still would have won without anything else. Kentucky gets their first win in Tennessee since 1984. Ole Miss, the way they looked on offense against Alabama has a lot of people happy, and Sam Pittman, even though Arkansas has lost a couple games, has so many people happy in Fayetteville, and here you go, more pick-6s.
And dude, Matt Corral has been one of the best quarterbacks in America so far this year. He threw 6 interceptions today, most for Ole Miss since they joined the SEC in 1933.
Yeah, that's not going to get it done. He tried to make up for it with a touchdown that got him within 1 score, but Felipe Franks, Florida. Forget about Florida. Woo pig for Felipe.
Chris, is Arkansas good?
I think Arkansas might be pretty okay, and that's probably a topic for another day because look at that final score. They put up 33 points, and they win the game against Ole Miss. Arkansas, they had top 5 team. We're going to find out in the SEC maybe here in a few seconds. Texas A&M and Mississippi State. A&M's coming off that big win over Florida. We're about to say the Mike Leach era in Mississippi State is officially on a rocky road.
It's one of the strangest turnarounds in a bad way we've ever seen. They beat the reigning national champs in Leach's first game. They put out the video, hop on the bandwagon. We've got a spot for you. Now they've lost 3 in a row. They've looked terrible in all 3.
And KJ Costello was a world beater against LSU the first game. Now all he does is turn the ball over. That was detrimental right there, and Texas A&M took full advantage. They win this game 28-14 was the final. Mississippi State has now lost 3 straight games. So we have a sample size now in the SEC where we feel comfortable, Drew and I do, to give our top 5 power rankings of the SEC so far through 4 weeks. I'll let you go first. You're the new guy.
Well, I don't know how comfortable I'd say I am, Chris, but let's just go ahead and put these up on the screen. I'm going number 5. Give me
I
the
wouldn't be
Bayou
comfortable
Bengals.
with that.
Now, listen, I know what you're going to say at home. They've looked so bad this year. They had all the guys opt out. I know Burrow is gone. Edwards-Helaire is gone. Jefferson's gone. Whatever, they're still super talented. I think they'll figure it out. Texas A&M, I think we got to give more credit to them for their performance today. I know Mississippi State is really struggling, but A&M took the bull by the horns today.
So what did you do
Florida.
here?
So I know A&M just beat Florida, but let's be honest. There are about 1 billion fans at Kyle Field in Texas A&M. And Florida, if they play neutral site, you know the Gators are winning that game. Georgia, if they had won tonight, would have been in that spot to the left. I've got the Bulldogs at number 2. And honestly, among the teams playing, I'd have them still in the top 3 right now. In America, only Clemson, but then Alabama. How can you not put them at number 1 in America after what they did tonight?
Yeah, I think they have better wins than Clemson. We'll talk about Clemson here in a little bit. To me, it's fascinating because Georgia could be close to number 1. They could be close to 2, 3, or 4. For me, I'm going to go with Arkansas as number 5, just because I know they lost to Auburn, a game they feel like they should have won.
Yeah.
About the Bo Nix backwards pass, it was a big dilemma. I put them ahead of Auburn for that reason. The way they looked against Ole Miss, I'm kind of impressed by them. Now, I'm going to put Florida behind Texas A&M solely because the sample size is kind of small right now, and all we can go off of is head-to-head. I agree. I think Florida's probably going to be a better team than A&M down the stretch, but right now, 4 weeks in, they beat them. I got to put A&M ahead of Florida, to be fair. And again, Georgia, they could bounce back after the Alabama loss. I mean, that first half was very impressive for them. If they played that way like they did in the first half, they could play Alabama really well in the SEC title, or they could go the other way and be back with these other teams.
Yeah, now, Chris, I actually think the gap between 2 and 3 here is about as wide as it is in the rest of the conference. I think Alabama and Georgia pretty clearly the top 2 in this conference. I think we'll see a rematch in December.
You say that, but then Florida still has to play Georgia.
Can
what
they
happens
play, though?
if Florida
Can they get on the
beats them?
field? They need to play a game, though.
Well, I mean, yeah, if they don't even get back next week, they're not playing them next week, and we don't even want to get into that drama because who knows what would happen with the SEC schedule. You got to think, no matter how bad Florida's COVID cases are, they're going to find a way to play the game against Georgia. It's Georgia.
Right. I mean, they have to. Dan Mullen can coach the game from the press box if he needs to. I mean, that is a really good team. Their offense is really scary. It'd be like a baby version of what we saw tonight with Alabama's offense, Georgia's defense. Florida can really score, too.
Kirby Smart needs a big win after what happened tonight. We're going to get to Kirby's press conference here on the wrap-up show coming up next after this.
You're watching CBS 42 College Football Saturday Wrap-Up, presented by Pepsi.
Time now for our SEC Stars of the Night. Do I sound like an Arkansas homer by putting a number 1 star, the number 1 star, being linebacker Grant Morgan? He was fantastic. 19 total tackles, 5 solo. He had a pick 6, 3 tackles for loss. It was fantastic. A big win over Ole Miss. Mac Jones gets good every single week. 411 yards, was not even top 2 in his weeks he's had in the SEC. He's getting so good. And the number 3 star, Texas A&M. They didn't need much offense, but Isaiah Spiller gave it to him. 18 carries, 114 yards, and 2 touchdowns.
You see no one from the Georgia Bulldogs on your screen right now. Kirby Smart been pretty good against other rivals for Georgia, but not so much Alabama. He's only lost once each to Auburn, Florida, Tennessee, and Georgia Tech in his 5 seasons in Athens. Pretty impressive, but check out that first column. Kirby Smart is still winless against Nick Saban.
We were able to contain them a little bit early. Thought we had some big stops in the red area in the first half, and then second half we couldn't do it. We didn't stop them. Give their coaches a lot of credit. They outcoached us. They did a good job, and we got to do a better job of helping our players put them in a chance to be successful. But I was really pleased with the way our guys competed. Just frustrated that we couldn't get anything going in the second half, especially that opening drive. I thought we were going to be able to run the ball down. So he's not perfect. He's learning, he's growing up. He also made some good throws and made some plays, and he even made some checks to put us in really good situations. But Stetson's got to just play within himself and allow the people to help him around him. And we got to help him with the run game around him, because we can't throw the ball that many times and hope to be effective. They're physical. They're everything you want to be in a football team because of their physicality and the way they play. And, we're trying to do the same thing, and we didn't do it as well as they did it tonight.
If it felt like the SEC was the only conference playing football tonight, it kind of felt that way because of the way other conferences have looked. The Big Ten, the Pac-12 are not playing yet. Then there's the ACC, one conference who's really trying to gain some respect, but some things that have happened to them over the last few weeks. Are we really curious about some of them actually being top 5 teams, or are they contenders? We know Clemson's not a pretender. They are legit as we go to the ACC coming up next.
You're watching CBS 42 College Football Saturday Wrap-Up, presented by Pepsi.
It's always fun to play this game. If the college football season ended right now, 4 weeks in for the SEC, what would the playoff look like? Well, 1-4, Clemson, Alabama, Georgia, that's going to change. Notre Dame and North Carolina, you see 2 ACC teams in there right now. Notre Dame has been a mystery for years. They haven't played an ACC schedule. They've been independent, but now all of a sudden they're in the ACC this year. They can win the conference. But is this team actually overrated? Have they played a legit enough schedule? Well, playing Louisville at home, a team that's quarterback got hurt in this game and had to go to their backup. They're already an abysmal team to start with. They had a lead on the Notre Dame Fighting Irish on the road, 7-3. I'd say they're overrated, but then Ian Book did this. 13 yards on the touchdown scamper for the quarterback. Notre Dame survived the game, but barely. They're going to wait to play the Clemson Tigers on November 7th, maybe get a reality check by then, because Trevor Lawrence, what this kid is doing, if you want to call him a kid, he is a full-grown man when he throws the football, and his stats are just ridiculous. Most of these numbers, 404 yards passing, 5 touchdowns in the first half alone against Georgia Tech. The Tigers, if we're going to be real about this, they probably could have put up 100 points on Georgia Tech if they tried, kind of like Georgia Tech back in the day, putting up 222 on Cumberland in the early 1900s. Now they know what it feels like. Clemson puts up 73 points, and Lawrence, the numbers are ridiculous, because imagine what he would do if he was playing in the second half of games. First half, 1,200 yards. He's as smooth as a butterfly. And then in the second half, barely anything. He's barely thrown the ball, but they're still good numbers by anybody else's means. Just awesome stats by a guy who is clearly the front runner for the Heisman Trophy, unless you ask Drew Carter. Now, North Carolina, are they another overrated team in the ACC? You may be looking around saying, well, yeah, they are. North Carolina, this ain't basketball. Playing at Florida State, a team who has been so bad this year with Mike Norvell, their new coach. Are they ever going to get it together against a team in the ACC? And it looked like it finally happened today. Florida State had a big lead. They held on late, and look at this, 31-28. Okay, yeah, North Carolina was overrated, Drew, and I'm sorry you think Mac Jones is a better quarterback than Trevor Lawrence. Maybe he will be one day.
So, man, I'm just saying. I'm not saying he's better. I'm just saying Heisman buzz, beat a good team, and then we'll talk Trevor Lawrence. All right, a lot going on today across college football. Sometimes hard to catch it all, especially if you were dialed in on CBS 42 for Bama, Georgia. Simone Eli joins us now with her 3 big things.
Well, it's been another exciting roller coaster of a day of college football, which brings us to our big 3 things from week 4 of the SEC season. And Dan Mullen has got to be feeling a little bit of embarrassment right now. A week after the Florida coach was pushing for the school to allow 90,000 fans in its stadium for the LSU game, Mullen announced that he tested positive for COVID-19. Florida paused football activities Tuesday after an increase in positive tests, and the game against LSU has been rescheduled for later in the season. Mullen said he's self-isolating at home with his family. Meanwhile, our second big thing of the day, turnovers have been the name of the game in the SEC today, specifically interceptions. Going into the Georgia-Bama game, quarterbacks in the league had already thrown 16 interceptions on the day. Ole Miss's Matt Corral led the way with 6 picks, another 3 from Auburn quarterback Bo Nix. Then the first 2 possessions between the Tide and Bulldogs resulted in interceptions. That's got to be some sort of one-day record. And our third big thing, Alabama's $1 million band finally got a chance to show off its brand new uniforms. They've been wearing polos after their old uniforms were damaged in the on-campus fire back in April. Good stuff for a hard-working group of young people. Let's go back to you in the studio.
Thanks, Simone. We miss you. Can't wait to see you back here soon. Now, coming up, the road ahead for Alabama and Auburn. Looking good for the Tide. Maybe not so much for the Tigers. We're back after this as you take a look at Bryant-Denny Stadium on our wrap-up show.
CBS 42's Drive of the Game is powered by Toyota. Visit your local Toyota dealers today. Toyota, let's go places.
The turning of the tide, whatever corny thing you want to say about this Alabama team late in the third quarter, started right here when Georgia had a chance to take the lead.
That made me laugh, Chris. I don't know about anyone at home, but this pick by Malachi Moore, another shout out Hewitt Trussville, was monstrous for Alabama. Defense struggling led to this.
The flea flicker. It was sloppy, but you know what? Devontae Smith does what he does. He makes things look easy. That was a catch. The young man was fantastic. Yes, it's a catch.
Dude, he's so good. I just started laughing when he made that play because it was an underthrown pass. It was not a well-executed flea flicker by any means, but he's so good.
They had the pass interference that led to this, the very next play, Najee Harris, and the defense took care of the rest, especially players like Dylan Moses.
As far as the run game, I feel like, just being more consistent. Because like I said last week, you guys know what happened. But as far as like this week, it was just more so, stopping the run and doing what we can to get off the field on third down. And I feel like we did a good job of doing that. Like I said, it's still areas with improvement that we can have. And like I said, we're just not getting complacent. I feel like we still have a lot more work to do.
So what's next for Alabama? Well, it's round 4 of 4 straight of Nick Saban versus former assistants. This time they go to Rocky Top and a lowly Tennessee team. Could you pick up a worst week for Tennessee to face Alabama?
Man, Tennessee licking their wounds right now. They get this one in the 4th Saturday in October instead of the 3rd. I don't think it matters.
Mississippi State, sorry, Mike Leach, and then LSU. You got them as your top 5 team in the SEC.
Hey, going to Death Valley. Who knows how many fans there?
They're going to beat Arkansas easily, too. That's fine. Auburn, on the other hand, we're not going to find a single game where Auburn has a cupcake, so to speak. Yes, it is the SEC, that's why, but these games at Ole Miss is really going to be a problem next week, and LSU is going to be a toss-up too.
Well, I'm looking at that first one there on the screen, Chris, at Ole Miss. Just get your popcorn ready, because when you mix this Auburn team with Lane Kiffin and the Ole Miss Rebels, hilarity will ensue. I don't know what it's going to look like or who's going to win. I just know it's going to be crazy.
What do we love about this season? Every week is different. It's been so unpredictable. As crazy as last weekend was, Wednesday to Saturday with Nick Saban topped all of it. It makes you wonder what's going to happen next week.
Well, I have no idea, Chris, but I will say this before we look ahead. Let's look back. This was the game of the week. So much hype around this one. Maybe the game of the season. It delivered. This was a lot of fun tonight.
Thanks for being with us all night long on College Football Saturday. I'm Chris Brees. He is Drew Carter. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday and your weekend. We'll see you on Monday.